In this video, I want to take a step back, all the way back to the beginning. I want to talk specifically about what's at the heart of my ICD parenting philosophy, and that is teaching your children to live at the boundaries of their abilities. I've already done a video called The Boundaries of Their Abilities, where I explain that concept. If you haven't watched that video yet, please do. It's important. In this video, I want to go into the philosophy behind that concept. Why is it that I believe, and I hope you will eventually believe, that learning to live at the boundaries of your abilities is the highest level of self-fulfillment you can achieve? It's a lifestyle, really, the way we live our lives, I guess you could say. The point where each of us makes the most of our lives, where we find the most joy, the most passion, and the biggest sense of accomplishment. What are my reasons why I believe that living at the boundaries of your abilities should be the primary objective in almost everything you do? Well, let's get into it. When in your life have you felt real satisfaction from accomplishing something? You know the feeling I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the feeling you got in school when your secret crush looked your way and said hello. I'm not talking about the feeling you got when you were picked by a teacher for some special duty or responsibility. And I'm not talking about the feeling a lottery winner experiences. Those feelings, although extraordinary and meaningful in their own way, are just the luck of the draw. Those times can't be planned. They happen spontaneously, the concept of serendipity to a degree. I'm also not talking about the feelings you get from a given or inevitable outcome. For example, birthday parties are a pure joy to kids and adults alike. Who doesn't like a party where you're the center of the attention? Personally, that's not my thing, but I'm an outlier. The joyful feelings the average person gets from those occurrences are not the result of some lucky happenstance. They are expected and virtually certain to occur. I'm talking about the feeling of accomplishment you get when you outperform your own expectations. I'm not sure how often this has happened to you, but I'm sure it has happened a few times in your life. These types of accomplishments have much more meaning. This is when the B or C level member of the sports team scores the critical goal or makes the great play. This is when a relatively mediocre student puts in the effort and gets the highest grade in the class. This is the musician, the painter, the writer who creates a work they didn't think they had in them. When you were in school, maybe it was when you put in the extra effort studying for a test and you crushed it, performing better than you thought you could or would. Maybe it was when you were in the school orchestra or band and totally nailed your section of the piece. Every note clean, bright, tonally perfect. Did you play a sport in high school or college? Did you ever make the great shot, the perfect save, the clean pass, setting up your teammate for a score? I'm not talking about the average stuff here. I'm talking about the times you performed above your coach's expectations, above your teammates' expectations, above your own expectations. As an adult, maybe it was when you really put in the time to prepare for a presentation to your boss and you killed it. The sales pitch that landed a big account, the business dinner where you just happened to share stories or jokes that went over big and left a huge impression on your coworkers. I call this performing at the boundaries of your abilities. I believe the vast majority of human beings are genetically programmed to find the most joy, the most success, however you define success, living at that point. It's only at the boundaries of your abilities that you truly discover what you are capable of. A life well lived, actually amazingly well lived, is a life lived at the boundaries of your abilities, your BOA point. If you think of the people in your life that seem to live their lives with more joy, more happiness than the average person, you're probably looking at someone who lives their life at their BOA point. Living as much of your life as possible at that point has a deep and meaningful impact on your overall sense of well-being, of purpose, of accomplishment. Let me use an iceberg as an analogy to explain the BOA point. I'm hoping this analogy will make sense to you. When you think of an iceberg, when you see it in your mind, you probably think of just the tip of that iceberg that extends above the surface of the water. The bulk of the iceberg is submerged. The BOA point is just the tip of that iceberg. Learning to live at your BOA point, all the effort, your attitude, your discipline, commitment, and determination, that's the bulk of the iceberg that's under the surface. That's what builds your BOA point. Living at your BOA point is not just something that happens. It's the result of a conscious effort to push yourself, to engage yourself in challenging pursuits where you're more than likely to fail than to succeed. It's a mindset where you understand the result you're after. It's not likely to be achieved in the short term or perhaps ever at all. And yet the effort to get there or achieve that is not diminished by the challenge, but rather fueled by it. What is really magical about challenging yourself by pushing up against your perceived ability boundaries is that even when you fail at any particular objective, you still generally feel like a success. Let me state that another way. Even if you don't accomplish your goal, you can accept that failure. You can accept the failure since you know inside that you're pushing up against the boundaries of your abilities. How can that be? When you're honest with yourself about what you believe are your limitations, and then you challenge those limitations, that in and of itself is success. For example, let's take someone that has never run much in their life but wants to run a marathon. Even after training for several months, if they have to walk half the distance to finish the race, they've achieved something that was previously beyond them. You know what happens next? That person goes out, they train some more, and next time, or the time after that, they'll run the whole route and finish that race. Now let's say it took them 1 year from the first time they started training to the time they finish a marathon running without ever walking. Do you really believe that person, upon finishing, is dwelling on the challenge and difficulties of getting to that point? Or are they reveling in their success? That's a boundary broken. Next boundary, please. It doesn't matter what that challenge is, an athletic accomplishment, mastering a piece of music, learning a new language, or cooking the perfect souffle. Every person, no matter what level of talent, skill, or ability, has boundaries to be broken. This is inherently a part of every one of us, every single one of us. It's unfortunate that so many people see their personal boundaries as limitations rather than opportunities to improve themselves. Far too many of us, adults that is, seem to instinctively create limitations in our lives in order to avoid failure. That's a damaging mindset. It's wrong and counterproductive. It's failure that begets success. That's right. If you want to succeed at something, first you're going to have to go out and fail at it. Probably fail a whole bunch of times before you succeed at whatever you're trying to accomplish. What does any of this have to do with raising an independent, confident, good decision maker? Well, basically everything. The surest way to raise an ICD adult is to teach them to challenge themselves to overcome their boundaries as often as possible and in as many ways as possible. Teaching your children to constantly and consistently push against the boundaries that seem to limit them will instill in your children the desire to always be trying to better themselves. That is success. I'm here to tell you, and you can absolutely challenge a 3-month-old child to live at the boundaries of their abilities. At every age, 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, 50 years, it doesn't matter. Every person has ability boundaries, and those that learn to push those walls out further and further always live a better life than those that cower within their walls. Tier 1 professional athletes, the superstars, they're an easy way to see this. There are many examples, but I'll use Michael Jordan as my example. He famously got cut from his high school varsity basketball team as a sophomore. He knew he had talent. He knew he was capable of more, and he never stopped challenging himself to improve at the game he loved. During his NBA career, he constantly challenged himself to play at his highest level. He's now considered one of the greatest to ever play the game because he was never satisfied with his success. He was always after more, always pushing. Remember when he retired from basketball and tried his hand at professional baseball? Here he was again, challenging himself. He never made it to the show, never played in Major League Baseball, but he pushed himself to be the best that he could be in that sport, in the sport of baseball. That's a rock star ICD adult living at his BOA point. You may already be a parent or planning on becoming one. You have a huge responsibility, not just to your child, but to the community at large. Raising an ICD adult means properly preparing your son or daughter to live a life of meaning. This meaningfulness relates as much to the individual living in a way that brings satisfaction, joy, happiness, and passion to them personally, but also brings meaningfulness to their community by contributing in some positive manner. Each person's boundaries or walls are different. Those boundaries are unique to them. Some walls are higher than others, some thicker, some made of brick, while others are made of just wood. Some walls are much further away, while others have allowed their walls to exist within arm's reach, and yet they've never considered breaking through. As a parent, your focus should be on the walls that exist for your child. Forget about the walls of other children. Those walls are irrelevant to your son or daughter. Perhaps most importantly, forget about your walls, the walls you may have allowed to limit your potential. Being a parent is a difficult job. Wasting your time worrying about and or comparing your child's walls to the walls of others is counterproductive. Living life as an ICD adult is about being hyper aware of self-confidence, self-discipline, self-sacrifice, self-control, self-fulfillment, self-determination, etc., etc. It's about being brutally honest about yourself. It's about being constantly aware of your personal boundaries and always being willing to challenge those boundaries, those limitations. My hope is that your child will eventually be a happy, well-adjusted, contributing member of society who awakens almost every day with a smile and a positive attitude to go out in the world and accomplish something. I hope that your child learns to bring a sense of passion to whatever they do in their life. That passion will ultimately lead to them what I believe is the promised land, living their best life. That is true success. That can never be taken away from anyone. Their BOA point should always be identified. It should always be identifiable to them and always be challenged. When your child comes into your life, however they come into your life, it is your job to raise them in such a way that they learn to live their best life. Success is not necessarily a high-paying job or a respected profession. It's being true to who and what you are. Teaching your child to live their best life should be the ultimate goal for every parent. Raising an independent, confident, good decision maker is the end result of teaching your child to live their best life. Make it your goal and your child will reap the benefits for their lifetime. If you like what I said, please share it with someone. And of course, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for listening.